You're listening to the Known Legacy Podcast, brought to you by Known Legacy Ministries. For more information, go to knownlegacy.org. Now here's your hosts, Bill and Travis.
Good morning, Bill.
Dude, I love that intro.
Today's podcast brought to you by Black Owl Technology.
Yes,
Black
it
Owl
is.
Technology for all the owls.
That need technology. So grateful for it. Guys, good morning. Glad to have you here. You know, I was looking at the trees, and it's a beautiful day, and I'm like, and for some reason, the song that came to mind was like, all the leaves are brown, and the sky is gray.
And the sky is gray.
I went for... Actually,
Let's stop right now.
All the leaves are green, and the sky is blue, but we are so glad to have you here. And our stupidity. Welcome to the Known Legacy Podcast.
Known Legacy Podcast. I'm Travis. That's Bill over there. And
Oh,
Kyle,
wow.
our producer in the corner.
Yo.
It's awesome to have you guys here. As always, thank you guys so much. If you have not checked out our previous podcast, we did one with Jeff, and it's a longer podcast, but I promise you it is worth the investment of that time. His story is fantastic. Would encourage you to do that. If you find something that we do enjoyable, man, if you could give us a review, it'd be fantastic. If you want to share it with family, friends, even enemies, we're good with that. And as always, check us out on knownlegacy.org. You can email us at info@knownlegacy.org.
Yes,
You can support the mission ministry of Known Legacy there on the website, and I'm excited about today's conversation, boys.
Me too, man. It's a good day.
Yeah, it's
So-
kind of like the first chilly, I wouldn't say cold, chilly day here in North
Someone
Texas.
say chili?
I am firing up the old crock pot and doing chili.
Beans or no beans?
Beans or no. So here's my problem. I like chili. Period. Doesn't matter if it's got
You
beans or
probably
not.
like Hormel chili, which is let's be honest.
So when I was in Boy Scouts,
when
we
they
would-
serve you food in hell, it's Hormel.
what? Food in hell.
Sorry. This is an episode brought to you by Hormel Chili. I have nothing against them. That's just purely opinion, and I have no biblical proof for any of that.
it's
So
no
don't sue us.
biblical proof.
So don't sue us.
It's in the book of Second Opinions. Look it up. No, I remember when I was in Boy Scouts, we would eat Dinty Moore beef stew and Hormel chili.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
two were because you bring all these cans
Yep,
with you, and
yep.
it was nice because you got lighter and lighter as you went through the trip.
Yeah.
Because it was like you'd had less cans, but yeah, good old days. But when we got here, yeah, you're right. That was the fight. It
Yeah.
was beans or no beans.
No
That's what
beans.
it was. It wasn't meat.
No beans.
Sorry, I retract my previous
You need to
statement.
go out to Sweetwater, Texas for the Rattlesnake Festival.
The Rattlesnake
Yes.
Roundup.
That's where the original chili cook-off is, and that's where the restaurant Chili's came from.
Yep.
They don't even serve chili anymore, I don't think. But anyways, it doesn't matter. The important thing is, yes, it's meat. And if you're really feeling like saucy, put some ground beef with a little bit of ground sausage in there. Wonderful. And then you cube up some nice little chuck roast. Make sure you get that really nice and browned on the outside. Throw it in there. Let it simmer for like hours and just become tender. Oh, my gosh. You will have some of the best.
Cooking with Known Legacy.
Exactly.
Man, it's so good. Throw it on the smoker. Just let the smoke kind of, have some serrano peppers in there. Dude, I make a good chili. I make a good chili from
You don't
scratch.
have to bring it, and we'll have to eat it on air because
don't
this
use-
is our new thing. We're just eat food on the air.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be a major YouTuber at that point.
And then we'll have to get our cameras bigger because we won't fit on. We're just big fat guys. All right, so here's the question today, gentlemen.
Question of the day.
Thank you, Bill. It's October, end of October, coming into that time. And, we all know the Christmas movies that we love to watch. We all have, the conversations about Die Hard, whatever. I want to know from you guys, what is your go-to Halloween or fall type movie type, just that kind of kicks you into that spirit, that vibe, that feel that you just like, man, when I see that. Now, I'm going to take off the table Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because I feel like that's kind of a universal, like, that rolls into the feed, and you're like, okay, I'm going to watch it. And it's, animation is cheesy, and, but it's just so good. The music is so good. So anyways, what's your go-to fall movie? Bill.
Okay, I'm going to go first. So I have to say, like, there's a few fall movies, like, and I know it's not necessarily like a, like Halloween kind of thing, but, like, it's Rudy. Like, I love watching Rudy in the fall because it's like, man, that one scene when he finds out and gets the letter and he's right by the water and he runs off and it's like this beautiful. And, and yeah, now this one has a lot of language, actually, so please be cautious. Watch it on TV. But Good Will Hunting is the other one that really hits me but make sure you watch it on Made for TV. because it's about 8 minutes long at that point. No, I'm kidding. There's so many language. I remember somebody counted the language words, and there was like 147.
So in 2 years, when there's a big argument online about is Rudy a fall movie or a Halloween movie, we know where that started. That argument may have started right here. Is Rudy a Halloween movie?
I would say it's a good one. Because
I think it's a good one.
I know, man. And it is a favorite. That's the one I have to watch because it's just all fall all the way.
I love it. I love it.
What about you, Kyle?
Well, I was thinking like horror movies, right?
You can.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Cabin in the Woods.
Oh,
I love that movie because it's just bizarre, and it's basically got every horror character in it. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. But
Yeah, I'm not a big horror movie guy. Like I don't watch them, so I'm like I'm a wuss with that stuff. I just don't like them. But so it's got all the bad characters, is what you're saying?
You just have to watch it. It's not like a traditional horror movie slasher kind of thing. It does get
really. I'm not a big horror movie guy.
It gets a little violent in the end, but the whole premise behind it's amazing, and it's a really good movie.
Okay,
that's awesome.
Neither of you seen it?
No, I have not.
These views don't necessarily represent those of no legacy. But check out the
Go home and watch it tonight.
Okay, maybe
All
I
right.
will give it a shot. What about you?
Well, I don't believe in Halloween, you pagans, and
good.
so
Well,
no, I'm
good.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I would say it's a fairly recent drop, and it's Stranger Things. The first 2 seasons, man, are really steeped into the fall and the Halloween and the bikes and the leaves.
That's true.
All of it, and I'm like
the Ghostbuster stuff.
Yeah. So
I wish I had thought of that one.
So
because I found out that they're going to as the new seasons are coming on.
Yep.
I read this thing because we've watched them, and I mean again, how do I say, like, I don't think it spurns from like a demonic thing. It's a weird, different deal. But they're gonna tell us where the underground came from.
Oh, interesting.
That it wasn't like from what it sounds like, it doesn't sound like it was like a demonic based thing. It was like a situation that happened which caused the underground. And so all of that's going to come to light, they said, at the end of it. So we'll find out. So almost like there's closure to, okay, it's not like Satan and his armies kind of thing. It's like, oh, we made a mistake and opened up an underground whatever. Yeah. So I'm intrigued to watch it. So.
Well, and I think, for us in the world of Christendom, Halloween always has an interesting kind of conversation around it.
Dichotomizing factor.
It really does. And, some churches will do, well, it's the Reformation, so we're going to do something on Reformation, and it's Fall Festival and stuff like that. And I'm not here to say anything, but I will say, the one thing I do appreciate about how this is in our calendar is it is the one time a year that we are reminded that there's a spiritual reality around us that we're often numb to. And I think a lot of churches are numb to, and a lot of Christians are numb to this very real reality that the material world that we experience is as real as the spiritual world that we see glimpses of throughout the Old and the New Testament. And because we're Christians, we don't need to fear it, right? We have victory over it. But it is as real as the material world that we live in. And so in that way, I do appreciate some of those conversations and some of that stuff, because it's like, oh, yeah, there is something more than just the lollipops and the candy canes and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I get that. And this could be a whole nother podcast. But
today's podcast.
But I love what you're talking about, because I do kind of share that sentiment. So yeah, it's nice to know that there's an unseen world, and a lot of times we're walking in it and we're going, what is going on? You're like, oh yeah, I forgot that there is an invisible world around me that's warring after me and all of us followers of Jesus, because we've already won. And so I love that.
Well, in some ways, it is a unintended, clever intro into the conversation we're going to have today. Because so much of it is two people can see the exact same thing and have completely different views of it, right? And how do we, as followers of Christ, discern the view that God would have us have in a situation, not what the culture would deem or what the popular opinion would deem, but what is like God calling us? How is God calling us to see this situation and this moment at this time? Does that?
Yeah, no, that's a great intro. Can I get an applause thing for that one, because that was really good?
That's a great intro. Thank you very much. That's why I get paid the big bucks, everyone.
There you go, Travis. Great job on the intro. That was awesome.
Cheers.
That was good. Thank you, studio audience. Nope, we're good. No, I love it, because we're talking about. As I was reading through this and having conversations with other men, this idea of, and the title is "Focus on the Grapes." Focus on the grapes.
Focus on the grapes.
Focus on the grapes, and it's in Numbers 13. So I was reading this a while ago, and it just jumped out again because this whole situation. Just to give you guys some background for those of you who are listening and watching, this is the part where the nation of Israel is about to go in to spy out the land of Canaan. That awesome song that you had earlier, I loved, and so, but it talks about them sending basically 12 spies in, one from every tribe to go into these, to go into the nation of Canaan to check it out.
And Canaan, just, again, great setup. This is the promised land that God had promised to Moses. This was the kind of the horizon that was put on the heart of the Israelites as they were leaving Egypt. This was kind of the destination as they went through the parted Red Sea, and they were in the desert, and they were journeying towards this very spot. And so as they're arriving into the promised land, which is the land of Canaan, and God's people are preparing to receive this gift from God, this promised land.
Yeah.
Again, like any wise leader, you send out the spies to say, okay, let's see what we're up against. Let's see what's going on there. And that's kind of where the story picks up.
Yes, yeah. So they're assessing this land. It said in verse 21 of chapter 13 of Numbers, it says, so they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rahab near Lebo Hamath. If I'm saying this right, sorry. They went up into the Negeb and came to Hebron. Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were there. Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt, and he came down to the valley and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes, and they carried it on a pole between two of them. They also brought some pomegranates and figs. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol, which actually means cluster. So because of the cluster that the people of Israel cut down from there. So you get this basis of they're in this land. There's all this like new land. It literally, they said it's a land flowing. In fact, and then later on it says it's a land flowing with milk and honey. We came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey. And that's it. It's an interesting turn right from there when they come back and they said, however.
Keep
going.
For it. No,
I
was just going to say, it sounds like they're hobbits and they're entering the Shire.
Exactly. Like, this place is amazing.
Like, that's like there's peace and and there's
everything's good. It's it's not just these giant clusters. I mean, they're literally holding it with like a giant, like two guys are carrying out these clusters. I can imagine like they're the size of like, I don't know, avocados or something bigger.
Yes,
like, this is a grape. It's like, it's like the one grape is a meal kind of thing.
And the milk and honey is this blessing. Like it's so much more than just milk and honey. It represents the idea that God has blessed this fertile land in such a way that those who inhabit it are being blessed by Him.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, there's sweet, there's like abundance, and then it says, check this out in verse 28. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And so there's all this good, and they're like, but there's also some negative. Again, I go back to my Pastor Duke from New York. He would say, good and evil run on parallel tracks and often arrive at the same time. So there's always good. There's always something to look at to go, wow, well, there's a fight in this. We have to fight for it. And I think that's where it becomes the battle. And even here it says, verse 20, but Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let's go up at once and occupy it, for we're well able to overcome it. So the immediate reaction that stops me when someone goes, hey, God wants me to do this. And they're like, wait. Let's pray about it for 6 to 8 years. Time out. Well, if it's the Lord.
Have you done your pros and cons list yet?
Exactly. And Caleb's like, if we just go now, we'll take them by surprise and we'll take this place.
Right.
And it said, then the men who had gone up with him said, we're not able to go up against the people, for they're stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants. Who knows if this is true? They're just making these assumptions. It devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw in it are of great height. And they were, and there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, which could be another podcast we could do sometime.
Oh, that's a good one.
And check this out: we seemed to ourselves, not to them, we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said, "Would that we had died in the lands of Egypt, or that we had died in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they said to one another, "Let's choose a leader and go back to Egypt." And I'm like, what the heck just happened? Like, we get this promise from God. Hey, I want you to, like, they were given a promise. This is your land. Go and take it. And they're like, great, we're going to go in. We're going to send in the 12 spies. Like you said, the 10. You're singing the song now, aren't you? How does the song go?
This is your land, this land
Oh,
is my
okay. I thought you were talking
No,
about
it's a different one.
Wow, we just imposed
12
America.
men went to spy on Canada. 10 were bad and 2 were good.
There you go.
What did they see when they spied on Cana? The
That one
old
right there.
VBS days, man.
The old VBS. But I look at this, and I parallel our lives and our journeys. And I'm like, man, these guys had 2 options. They could look at all the negative, even though they knew God was calling them to this. Or they could look at the fruit. They could focus on the grapes. And Caleb was like, guys, we could go take them. This is great. And here they are, 2 of these guys holding this cluster of grapes. And they're going, wait a minute. Well, there's all these bad guys. It's monsters. They're going to kill us. And Caleb's like, grapes.
Right.
Look at this.
So the language that comes to me immediately is fear is a really good motivator and is often a manipulative tool used by charismatic leaders to stir people. Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, the conviction is like, who am I listening to? Am I listening to the men that are grounded in faith and see where God is moving and what God is up to? Or am I listening to those who are being motivated by fear? Because a lot of what we're dealing with in the church today and in our culture today is being manipulated by people on both sides of the political spectrum in the lens of fear, right?
Yeah.
And it is a really powerful short-term motivator that can get people, reasonable people, to believe and do unreasonable things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the generation that saw the Red Sea part. Right? This is the generation that lived through the plagues of Egypt. This is a generation that saw the Egyptians give them abundant wealth for no reason than God just said, they're going to hand it over to you. They're just going to hand you their finest silver, their best gold, and you're going to have to figure out a way to carry it out. And they've seen God provide for them in these obnoxious ways. Bread, manna from heaven, quail, all of these things. This is a generation. And then they come up to this moment. It's unknown. And their reaction is fear because they were listening to the voice of fear rather than sitting in the voice of the faith.
And it's
Does
so
that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I love that you're saying that because this whole idea is they listened to the majority who were like, this is all bad. This is all bad. And it caused them to, and then there was this thin line of the minority that was like, man, but God said this. And he's shown us what is here.
Right.
And you're still not going to believe it. And they didn't take, like just like you said, they have been being led by a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they're like, God's not with us. I mean, and so we would look at it and we would go, man, why? Why wouldn't they just jump in? Aren't they? I mean, I've said this myself. Why don't they have enough faith? And as I look at this, I'm like, man, as we journey in our life, as we see God doing things, calling us out into the next step, are we looking at the faithfulness that God was, or are we forgetting about that? Or are we focused on all the negatives and then going, God, you've called me to this? What the question today is, what is God calling you to do? Do you know him enough intimately that we are stopping and going, God, what do you want me to do? Because Caleb and Joshua both heard God say, we're going to go do this. And Caleb was like, before I had a chance to listen to the doubts, I'm going to run towards the fear.
Right.
Are we ready right now? Have we prepared ourselves in our hearts that when God calls us to do something, that we're just like, okay, I'm going to go do it.
Right.
And most of the world is going to call you stupid.
Yes.
Most of the world's going to look at you and go, what's wrong with you? Have you not checked out everything? How's your 401k?
Well, and that's the story of Jeff, too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the world, when he was giving away all of his stuff, they were wrapped up in fear and selfishness and like, I could never do that. We could never do that. We could never overcome that. And here's a guy who's faithfully engaged in this journey. And the next thing you know, God, over years of patience pursuit of him, redeems him and gives him a love and a life that he's never experienced before, right?
Yes.
And I think so there's a few fallacies that sometimes we can fall into as Christians, and that is the idea that if God's calling us to do it in faith, that there will be no fear. The reality is the fear that they expressed was real, right? But the faith was greater, and the promises of God were bolder than that fear. So it's foolish. It's as foolish as of us as Christians to say, well, this might be difficult. This might be uncomfortable. This might be hard. So God's not in it. And that's a lie.
Yeah.
Often God is like, it is going to be hard. It is going to be difficult. And watch what I can do.
Yeah. In fact,
watch what I'm about to do in spite of all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, if you look in the scriptures, I do not know one person who pursued after God and it was easy.
No. Nope.
I mean, even we've talked about this before, I think, but like even Daniel, people are like, well, Daniel didn't sin, and you're like, I know he didn't sin, but like,
oh no, Daniel sinned. Absolutely, he was a sinner.
Yeah, but the bigger thing is we forget that he was at 15 or 16 torn away from his family,
right?
And God, it's like it was not easy for him. It was not easy for one individual in the Bible to walk worthy of the calling of God, to go, God, this is what you've called me to, and it's just going to be a cakewalk.
Well, just think about the disciples in the New Testament. These guys walked with Jesus. These guys had struggles. They had fear. They had doubt. There's a reason why the door was locked after the resurrection. They didn't fully understand what was going on. That's why Jesus rolled in and said, hey, look at my hands. Look at my side. I am the resurrected Lord. And it convicted them so much that they got Cadillacs and the nicest apartments, and they lived in the nicest parts of town, right? And they retired on all of the good givings of the people of Jerusalem. No. They pursued this message, this promise for others in such a way that it cost them their life. It cost them their comforts here, because they knew the comforts here were deceptive and the comforts here were just temporary, and they were about something eternal. Right?
Yes.
And so you see the stories of Peter when it's time for him to go as a martyr, and they're like, I don't deserve to be crucified up the right way.
Yeah. I'm going to go
crucify me upside down. Because who am I to be crucified the same way my Lord is? I mean, to have that kind of faith in the midst of that kind of fear, to be Stephen, the first martyr that we celebrate in the church, to be a man who's so wrapped up in fear that as the stones begin to fall on him, he has the same prayer of Jesus on the cross. Lord, they don't even know what they're doing. Forgive them.
Yeah.
Like, don't hold this against them, because their eternity is so valuable and so important. This moment when they are wrapped up in the voice of the crowd, wrapped up in the fear of the moment, don't let that judgment be on them. But, Lord, save room for forgiveness for them from this moment. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see it in the Old Testament, you see it because it's the human nature. It's human nature. So if you are someone who has been dictated by fear and have been following fear more than this promise and these gifts of God, man, just know you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
In fact,
and God is not mad at you.
Yeah.
God is not done with you. God is not like, forget it, I'm moving on. God is patient with you and will continue, because here's the deal. After that story, what happens? They go back to the desert, and for 40 years they wander around the desert, and that generation has to pass away for the new generation who's going to take on. Now, that is judgment, correct? That is judgment. But God didn't say, well, now you're going to suffer. He continued to provide for them in the desert. One of the greatest miracles of them in those 40 years in the desert, their clothes didn't wear out. Their clothes didn't wear out for 40 years. It says that in Scripture. For 40 years, their clothes didn't. So here's a God who says, all right, you've blown it, but my mercy is still good for you. My grace and my gifts are still for you, and you still get the goodness of me, though it's not in the promised land where I desired it to be. And I think that's just, there's so much hope in that story.
Yeah,
we need to ring that bell into the hearts of men and wives and marriages that are on the rocks, and they're fearful that it's going to fall apart, and they're fearful of their kids making bad decisions, and they're fearful of their kids turning against them. And it's like, no. Just, again, God is a big God, and he can raise people from the dead. He can restore broken marriages. He can do the impossible. So he gets credit for doing the impossible.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I think you touched on something really
miraculous.
Good. Yeah, like you touched on something good. Like when you're afraid, focus on the grapes. And what are the grapes? What are the grapes? The promises of God.
That's an applause moment, by the way.
Well, thank you so much.
Focusing on the grapes with Known Legacy.
You focus on the grapes. You focus on the fruit that God has said, man, this man, it's a whole analogy of like, oh, what if I fail? Oh, what if you fly? So those grapes, the promises of what God has, but then also the faithfulness of who he was. All the way through this, he was faithful. God had provided consistently from the very beginning for all of our needs. So when has God not shown up? When has God let me down? Oh, so far, he hasn't. Based on his character, he's not going to. And so then we look back and we see where God's been faithful in our life.
Correct.
And that allows us to promise in the future to go, this is what I believe you have for me. And then I noticed something as you jump through it later on. They end up, you said 40 years. They wander around. There are only two guys in that entire generation that made it in, and it was those two spies.
Yep.
Joshua and Caleb. And I love this because then you see this in Joshua chapter 14. It's this idea where Caleb gets what he wants. And this is what he says. I love Caleb's speech. I picture this like 85-year-old dude who is jacked, man. But this guy is a warrior, and he focused on the grapes the whole time. It's what he said. He goes, I was 40 years old when Moses... Oh, he was 40. There you go. So he's 80 now. That's why I got that math. That's where I got my math from. Sorry, if I just read my Bible right there.
Numbers are hard.
They are. I don't math well. So said I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought him word again. It was in my heart. But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt. Yet... This is focusing on the grapes. Yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore in that day, saying, surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever. Because you have, again, wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive, just as he said, these 45 years. So he's 85 years old right now. Since the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses, while Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I am this day 85 years old. I am still as strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming. So now give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. He never forgot the promise of God. He said, for you heard on that day how the Anakim were there with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out, just as the Lord said. Then Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. I love this because at that moment, Caleb was like, time out. I'm still holding on to those promises, and I'm still going to take them down 45 years later. He never forgot who God was.
Two things that jumped out at me. One, he still calls them brothers. And you know how hard it is when someone comes up against you?
Yeah.
And for him, 40 years later, still have love in his heart towards his fellow man that stood against him. That's huge. Number two is this. Fear is an immediate motivator. Faith is a long-suffering motivator. And I think the fact that Caleb remained faithful to this for that long, you can see where it's that slow infection into that next generation of community, where he was now given the position, and he was now allowed that ability to influence not just his tribe, but all of the people and all the generations, because I guarantee his story was told around the campfires. I guarantee his story and their story, this promised land in the middle of the desert at year 35, they're still having these conversations. And the younger generation...
Crazy Caleb.
Right, crazy Caleb. But then they see Caleb, and they experience Caleb, and they walk with Caleb, and they're like, this dude's just a man marked by faith. And I would say this to young church leaders and young church workers. Realize that some of the greatest things we do is to be with a community for the long haul and allow them to see our faith as we follow Christ.
Good call.
And realize that sometimes the change and sometimes the mission and sometimes the impact that we want to have in our younger years won't actually take root until much further down the road. And that doesn't give us an excuse to deconstruct anything. That doesn't give us reason to walk away from anything. That gives us pause to say, I'm just going to abide.
Yeah.
I'm just going to abide in the vine who produces clusters of grape, and I'm going to let the fruit of my abiding be a blessing to the people around me, and God stir the hearts of those men and women the way that only God can stir the hearts of the men and women. Being faithful is such a huge gift to the people around you.
Yeah. I love it. So when you're afraid, focus on the grapes. What has God done in the past? What is he calling you to now? And stop listening to the fear of the others. And allow God to dictate your journey, not others.
And if there's bitterness in your heart towards someone, man, let God rescue you from that.
Yeah.
Because it's not hurting them. It's just hurting you.
It's only hurting you. Guys, this was great.
This is great. This is
fun. I love it. Focus on the grapes, guys. We're so glad to have you today. Any final thoughts, man?
Man, God bless you guys. Thanks for checking us out. Like always, man, if it's something that's a blessing to you, share it, like it, give us a review. That'd be always helpful. And check us out, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Awesome. Have a great week, guys. We believe in you. Keep focusing on those grapes.
Thanks for listening to the Known Legacy Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. So email us your questions or comments to info@knownlegacy.org.